Welcome back to Hot Rod Guy Garage, and this can be another episode on Project Freetro. So stick around with me through the intro, and I'll be back. Alright guys, let me know what you think of the new intro down in the comments below. But today, I need to get some work done on this front end swap that I've started to do. Not been a whole lot of project progress on Freetro here. Most because the videos haven't been done real well. So if you want to see more Freetro content, make sure that you share this video, comment, like. If you're not a subscriber, hit that subscribe button. It helps me to bring you more geo content. But let me flip the camera around. We'll talk about some things I've done in the background, and then I'll be back again. So guys, I pretty much stopped on the motor swap stuff until I get this front end stuff figured out so I can get the radiator and cooling system and everything mounted. Now, I did get the core support mounted in the car. It is fully welded in. I got the inner structure welded in. I'll show you that stuff here in a second. But today, I'm down to the hood. Now, as you can see, I got the headlights, bumper, and the 95 up hood mocked up on Freetro. So, I blended the two fenders together. They're rough welded. It's going to obviously have to be body worked. Got the other fender mocked up over here in the same fashion. Exaggerated the flare just a little bit to cover our drag slicks. But let me show you something. Now everybody says 95 up cars are wider. Look at our hood gap on the driver's side. Look at our hood gap on the passenger side. Now this hood's just sitting on here. And it does get a little tighter back there in the back, but if you look at this hood, it actually runs outward around that point. So the fix here to make this hood work on 94 down cars, 89 through 94 cars, to match the hood hinge here and our fender here, is I'm going to have to section Freetro's old hood, which means we're going to have to lose the artwork that was on the bottom of it. So I've got it roughly marked out here, and I'm going to make a cut there here in just a few. Then we'll begin trying to merge these two hoods together. But let me pull the hood off of it. I'll show you the work I've done underneath. So guys, as I said, I've got this stuff mocked up. But what I had to go in here and do is on the inner structure. Now this fender's not bolted down, so there's a little gap there. This flange will pull down. I had to replace the upper flange all the way from the firewall to the core support up here, which I cut out of the 96 donor car. Done the same thing over there. And with the little seam sealer and body work, that's a factory seam sealer seam, you won't tell it's been done. But our core support is mounted in the car, welded up totally on both sides, all the way up. I've still got a little hole matching up to do over here because your older body and the newer body, the holes do not align there, but they do align in other spots. So once I get all this stuff mocked up and fitted properly, I will pull the front clip back on it. We'll body work the fenders and the hood. But first, let me get that thing running before we'd start doing any body work. So my goal was to get all this stuff roughed in where it all bolts up. Then we're going to really hunker down on the later Model 1.3 swap. We can make a little more progress. So I may have went a little over top with the front end swap too. It was something I've always wanted to do. So that's what we're going to do. So at this point, I need to make a cut on the old hood. I'm not going to cut on the new hood yet. There will be some changes to have in the back half of it also. But I have a really good feeling that it's all just kind of going to merge together like I think it will. And hopefully it does. Can't be scared to do this kind of stuff, guys. If you think it'll work, just make your own car your own. So, my plan is, tentatively, when I go to No Name Nationals this year, then I am going to take both the red Torino and Project Freetro. And Project Freetro is kind of a backup plan just in case something happens with the 306 cylinder in Torino. So I've got a bunch of work to do and a little time to do it. It's like a little over 100 days at this point. And I've still got a car that's blown apart, and I've got a bunch of stuff I'm changing and a bunch of stuff to do. So let's get busy doing it, and I'll be back. And alright guys, I got our new hood mounted. That's obviously a joke, but I did bolt the piece back up. This is going to be important to fit in this because that way we can maintain how this is supposed to fit. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this hood and I'm going to set it up on here, and I'm going to mark it to the same curve as the back side of the 95 up hood until I get the fit I want at the front. I'm going to take this off and I'm going to cut it a little at a time. That way I've got the best fit possible across. Obviously we're not going to have a good fit here where this hood was cut before for all the other shenanigans we had done in the past. But we do have a nice structural piece of the hood that the hood hinges bolt to, and hopefully close to enough sheet metal to make it all fit together. Like I said in the last video, when I started this front end swap, this is not a beginner's thing. If you're not scared to cut, not scared to weld, not scared to fix your previous mistakes, or if you make a mistake, it's not for you. But I wanted something different, and it is going to make Freetro more aerodynamic and give us some more frontal weight that we desperately needed before. And alright guys, this is something important when you're doing something like this. I went ahead and cut the stock 96 hood, the corners off, so this hood would actually sit below flush, and I want to make the best fit I can possible between these two pieces. As you can tell, it's quite a bit lower, and ignore this, there's some grinding to do still there, but it's a little bit lower, and that allows this to sit on top of it. So what I'm trying to do by doing this is minimizing the patch panel I'm going to have to put in here. This will let me trace the hood line off Freetro's old hood onto the top of the 96 hood. So what I'm trying to do here by doing that is get this inner brace inside this hood to incorporate as tight as I can to the inner brace that was inside the old hood. And there may still be some trimming that needs to be done here, but I'm going to take and I'm going to mark this line again, and then I'm going to cut on the inside of this line. I'm going to test fit all this stuff until I get it where it fits somewhat flush together. Then I'll start tack welding it together and then pull it back off the car, and then we'll fully weld it all. But let me get this marked all out. I got to wipe this paint pen here. Don't matter what color you use, as long as you can see it. Cut on the inside, not the inside towards the hood, but whatever you're going to consider the inside here. I'm going to consider the outside the inside because it will be on the inside of our old hood. Alright, we're 4 cuts in at this point, and our hood is pretty close to being flush. I still got a little gap over here, but it needs to be shifted this way. So from here, I want to take a flap disc and tighten up our fit. Now this hood, the old hood, is overlapped slightly over here. So what you need to do at this point is take a real important time to make sure your fit is good where you want it to fit at, especially around your front. Not real worried about this edge being tight. This can be addressed later. The other edge looks pretty decent. So at this point, I'm going to take a black marker, since all my marks have been white before and you can see them. I'm going to take this black marker and I'm going to trace around through here. And I'm going to take a flat disc and I'm going to clean this hood up around this edge. I'm going to clean the paint off on both sides. And then when this final mock-up stage is done, we start welding this together. And once I get the top spotted, we can take the hood off, weld the lower brace together, and see what it looks like. A bunch of work? Absolutely. So far in this process, I'm about an hour in, just working on getting the fit where I want it, where I can start grinding stuff down and welding it up. So anytime you're going to make two pieces of sheet metal like this, you need to get it as tight a fit as possible. If it's not a tight fit and you got gaps, that's going to be an issue. You're either going to have to cut filler pieces and weld them in, or, you know, at the worst case scenario, you've got a ginormous gap and you're going to have to cut a filler piece. Just means more work in the end as far as body work and stuff goes. If this fits up like I think it will on the bottom, our two back braces are going to end up butted up against each other, which should give us a decent look underneath the hood. And alright guys, I got everything cleaned up with flap disc. We got a pretty good fit all the way up in this area where the hood was cut out before. That's where things kind of get a little ugly. Hopefully that'll be a pretty easy little patch make. We got a pretty good fit all the way over there. And that little gap will go away when this hood's pushed up. So I'm going to start at this point. I'm going to fire up my welder. I'm going to do a couple little hot metal tacks here in a few places along the way as I make sure this hood's squared up and fits where I want it to. So you want at least a good fit as this right here. When anytime you're welding sheet metal to sheet metal in a butt weld scenario. So the tighter you can get that gap, the better off you're going to be in the end. You don't want to have to end up welding that big wide gaps in sheet metal, because let's face it, the metal that these geos were made out of, or Swifts, cultists, you know, whatever you want to call them, are the equivalent of a Coke can. It's extremely hard to weld. Doing something like this, you have to be devoted to do it. So let me get this all welded up. I'll bring y'all along for a ride while I do a couple tacks, and we'll see if we can get this hood where it comes up. Maybe I can get a couple of small welds on the braces on the bottom side. Alright, I got the hood tacked where I could. I've got my welder turned all the way down. I still want to blow through in some places. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a wire brush and knock some of this dirt off from the weld, just where some old paint residue was. I'm going to keep filling in between these spots until I get a pretty good little penetration here. So when welding sheet metal, you want to keep your tacks about a finger width apart if you can. You don't want to put too much heat in it. You want to stay cool to the touch as you go. If not, it's going to end up a warped up mess, and you're going to have even more body work to do than you're going to have doing this. And what seemingly feels like 3 hours later, I have the hood all spot welded up, at least on the top side. So now I need to pull the hood back off, address the brace situation underneath, and then we can go from there. So, got it all welded up except for this big old ginormous gap right here, which I'm going to have to make some kind of patch for because there's no way. So, what I've done, like I said, spot, 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 back and forth, till you end up with something like this, which does not end up looking beautiful. But our hood does open, and now it's going to be time to address the brace issues underneath and try to get them tied together. Then we can work on these gaps. I'll show you how to address that. That's going to be super simple. And alright, this is how our bottom side meets up here. And I went in here and I welded some of the places where the two hoods contacted each other. It's not going to be strong enough that way. So the solution here, I'm going to make some plates. They're going to sit here all the way across. And it's going to make this appear to be one solid brace. Obviously, lots of room for future rust, and unless you get in here with some kind of rust proofing and rust proofed inside the hood. Fun fact, you know, they're not really coated inside the braces anyway. So, like I said, get it welded in a few places. It's good and solid. I'll show y'all how to address these edges here soon in this video. But for now, I need some strips of metal, which means I need to break out the measuring tape, figure out how wide it needs to be. I wouldn't never know where I might get some spare metal at. Maybe off the fenders, maybe off the old hood. But what we're going to do, we're going to cut some filler panels and put in here and connect these two braces down through here like this. Then we got to decide which set of washer holes we're going to use. That's a problem for later. So guys, in this phase, this stuff is not beautiful and it looks horrible, and I'm sure somebody's going to have something to say down in the comments. But remember, it's a Geo Metro. Don't really matter. Just as long as everything's safe and connected and I can body work it out in the end. If it was a show car, there'd be a lot more fitting. This would be a few day job instead of a few hour job. Well, I've been working and welding, and I got the back braces plated up there. You could use a little more grinding. And the reason why I'm not grinding this stuff all the way down yet, guys, is when I go back to body work this, I'll grind it thin after I decide what route I'm going to take and how far I'm going to go. So now at this point, it's time for me to address these edges, and I'll show you all how to do that. And it's going to be easier for me to show you on the side over here, just because it's towards the light. Now what I like to do when you have an overlapping gap like that is I'm going to take this piece of tape, I'm going to put it on this line, and I'm going to hold that line straight until we get to an area where the line is perfectly straight up through here. So once you do that, you see exactly how much you have to take off right here, which may seem like a lot, but the later hoods have a very, very wide pinch seam on them, and should be able to take this off with a flat disc. Or a cut-off wheel, if you so prefer. So I'm not going to show you the whole thing yet. I'll come back because I seen the camera was shaking. I'll come back after I get this ground down. I'll show you this edge. So I left it a little wide there, but I knocked that edge down pretty straight. I knocked this other one down pretty straight. Now I need to test fit it back on the car, and then we can do some final grinding on the edge. Well, I got the hood mocked back up. Not real happy with the gap right here. Probably gonna have to do some welding on this edge. I had the same thing going over here, and I've welded up the edge of the hood. It looks crooked. Most of that is the fender right there. The body line don't quite line up in this area right here. You see it's a little further out than the other line. And that can be addressed when the body work starts. But the only other thing I got to do to this hood to get it completely done and ready for body work is address this, weld the washer squirter holes, and then we can body work it out. But we do have a fully functioning hood once again. That bolts up and matches up to the older style cowl. And now you can kind of visualize what I had going on the whole time. Really don't look much different from this view, but if you stand back, you can see that the hood line is about an inch lower and just a hair longer. This should help aerodynamics. Weight being further forward as far as bumper brace stuff goes should help traction. So we'll just have to see what happens. And the big thing is, guys, I just wanted to get all this metalwork kind of roughed in and it all somewhat back together so I can finish up the engine swap and the wiring swap. You know, this isn't something I could have just got it running and driving and then started this. It's kind of an all-in-one deal. So, that being said, this is going to be the end of this video. I hope you learned something with the hood deal. Like I said before, it's not perfect. It's not going to be. Don't have to be. Freetro is a race car. So, guys, if you like this video, make sure you hit that like button. I look forward to your comments down below. Share this video with your friends. And if you're not a subscriber, hit that subscribe button because it helps the channel to grow. And I'll see y'all in the next video. Thank you for watching.